Hello viewers, well with the consumer VR headsets hitting the home, we'll be covering more VR content on the channel in the coming weeks, months and years. I'm very interested in it myself, and recently I caught up with the developers of new title VR Karts to find out what they had to say and check out their latest VR racing experience.
Hi, my name is Neil Wigfield. I'm the design director at Viewpoint Games and our game is VR Karts. So VR Karts came about, me and a friend of mine, my colleague Neil Campbell, we started a company called Viewpoint Games, and we started with a few kind of really rough prototypes, and one of them was a karting game, and it was the one that was the most obvious to develop into a full game. It was the one that we kept kind of returning to, and we could see expanding, and we wanted to do an online multiplayer. That was the most obvious thing to do, and we wanted to make a social VR game. And kind of VR Karts just kind of came about by accident, but has been the kind of the most obvious to develop for a launch title for Oculus and all the other VR headsets. Okay, I guess we started with DK1s, which are kind of pretty rudimentary, but you could already see where the game was gonna, how game changing it was for computer games and kind of experiences in general. When we first started, it was kind of pretty evident that what you're used to developing games didn't really kind of work anymore. The kind of rule set's kind of been ripped up. So like stuff like HUDs and loading screens and lots of text on screen, and doesn't really make sense in VR. So we've kind of designed the game from scratch to work in VR and kind of putting the player first person in the world and be able to see all the world around them makes a huge difference how the game plays. So VR Karts is primarily an online multiplayer arcade racer that's designed to appeal to kind of anyone from 13 to 90. It's got kart customization and character customization. It's got local single player, single races, time trials, trophy competitions, and kind of the most important thing is you can get on and race against people from around the world. So one of the kind of the best discoveries, I guess, in VR Karts was the wing mirrors. We kind of put them in as a kind of graphical flourish, but they've become an essential part of the gameplay. You're racing in 360 degrees and being able to see players from behind you and kind of using those as like a tactical element is kind of fundamental to the game. Using that to protect your racing line, to protect your position, to block someone trying to overtake has been pretty fundamental. And I guess the other thing is kind of head tracking and targeting. Doesn't really make sense in a game unless it's first person, but being able to lock missiles on with your head and while you're kind of racing in another direction has been, it's great fun, and it kind of works really well. So VR Karts is a launch window title for Oculus Rift. So if it's hopefully it's day one. If not, it will be in the next couple of weeks after launch.
So that was VR Karts, a simple but enjoyable game, very much for a younger audience, but either way it's just something to give you a tantalising feel of VR and the potential there is for the future. Fun and enjoyable. It was surprising to see how well it converted to Gear VR using mobile phones. Very impressive indeed, actually, bearing in mind it's a wireless VR device. Smaller field of view obviously than say the Oculus or the Rift would eventually have, but either way very impressive. That's VR Karts, and there'll be more VR news and action from me very soon.